All right, let's talk about something you probably interact with dozens of times a day without even thinking about it: the digital form. I mean, they're literally everywhere: login screens, checkout pages, you name it. But their story and the power they hold goes so much deeper than just a few boxes on a screen. So, let's start with a really basic question. What is a form? The answer seems super obvious, right? But maybe it's not. This simple question actually kicks off a fascinating journey into how we as humans talk to our computers. For most of us, when you say form, this is what pops into our heads: a straightforward way to run a survey or grab some basic info. And yeah, that's part of it, but it's really just the tip of the iceberg. In the world of design, a form is so much more. It's the essential conversation between you and any digital product. Seriously, think about it for a second. Signing up for a service, that's a form. Personalizing your profile, form. Buying anything online, that's a form too. Almost every single valuable thing you do online is powered by a form. To really get why forms today are so sophisticated, we've got to go back. Way back, let's take a quick look at how they grew up right alongside technology itself. This whole story really unfolds in four big chapters. We started with just plain text commands. Then we got our first visual building blocks with GUIs. After that, forms absolutely exploded onto the internet, which brings us to today, this era of super refined, user-focused design. In the early days, with no graphics, no mouse, nothing, it was a simple back and forth. The computer would ask you something, you'd type your answer. The system was totally in charge, walking you through this really rigid, text-only conversation. It was structured data collection at its most basic. And then, boom, the 1980s hit, and with it, the graphical user interface. All of a sudden, we had windows and a mouse and actual visual tools. We could see the fields we needed to fill in. Things like text boxes and radio buttons and checkboxes made putting information in so much more intuitive. It wasn't a guessing game anymore. But let's be real, the web was the true game changer. Back in 1993, the Mosaic browser brought fill-out forms to the internet, and by 95, they were a standard part of how the web worked. This was the moment that gave us e-commerce, online signups, the interactive web as we know it. The form officially became the engine of the internet. Okay, so that brings us to the modern era, where form design is basically a science. Take this simple example. Should a form be in one column or two? Well, tons of research shows that a single, clean, vertical path is just way better. It guides your eye, cuts down on confusion, and dramatically boosts the chances you'll actually finish the form. It seems like a tiny detail, but the impact is huge. And what happens when you have a really complex task? Well, you break it down. Instead of scaring a user off with a giant, intimidating form, smart designers use a multi-step approach. You start with the easy stuff, then move into the more detailed info, and you always give the user a chance to review at the end. It's all about lowering that anxiety and making the whole thing feel way more manageable. So we've seen how forms have evolved, but why are they still so central to everything we do online? Well, it's because they are just brilliant at solving a few really fundamental needs, both for us and for the computers we're talking to. You can really boil it down to these four pillars. First, forms make sure data is structured and consistent for the system. Second, they help guide us to give the right info in the right format. Third, they give us a sense of control. The process is clear and predictable. And finally, they standardize all that data, making it super easy for systems to store and manage. And great modern forms don't just take your data, they actively help you get it right. You know that little green check mark that pops up, or that red error message you see as you're typing? That's real-time validation. It saves you from that awful feeling of hitting submit only to be told you made a mistake way back at the top. It builds trust and just makes everything feel smoother. And if you want to see the power of good design in one number, here it is. Studies showed that applying modern usability principles can literally skyrocket the success rate of forms. We're talking going from a 42% error-free completion rate all the way up to a staggering 78%. That's almost double the success just from designing a better conversation. But of course, the story isn't over. The evolution continues. And while the classic form is more polished than ever, there are new technologies starting to challenge the whole idea of filling out boxes on a screen. Take conversational UIs, for example. Chatbots. Instead of filling out fields yourself, you're having a dialogue. The system asks you questions. And while that's awesome for exploring something complex or for a task you don't do very often, The good old-fashioned form is still faster and gives you a better sense of control for those routine, structured jobs. Another huge shift we're seeing is the move from rigid fields to what you could call block-based interfaces. Think about tools like Notion. Instead of being trapped in a fixed structure, you're handed a set of digital Lego blocks and a blank canvas. You get to build the system you need instead of just feeding data into one someone else built. And that actually brings us perfectly to our case study. Notion is probably one of the best examples out there of a company that has completely rethought how we input and structure information from the ground up. Their core philosophy is so simple but so powerful. They say, don't start with a form, start with a blank page. They give you the tools, those digital Lego blocks we talked about, and they empower you to build exactly what you need, whether that's a simple to-do list, a massive project tracker, or an entire company wiki. And the block is the heart and soul of this whole approach. A block can be anything, a piece of text, a checkbox, a table, even a full-blown database. By arranging and combining these blocks, users basically become the designers. They're creating their own custom interfaces and workflows that are perfectly tailored to what they need to do. And now they're pushing this even further by bringing AI into the mix. The Notion AI acts like a smart assistant. It can turn your messy, free-form notes into a structured table, or even help you draft content from scratch. It completely blurs the line between creating something and just entering data. It feels less like filling out a form and more like collaborating with a smart partner. Which leaves us with this one fascinating final thought. The form was invented to bring structure to our chaotic conversations with computers. But as our computers get smarter, as AI starts to truly understand and anticipate what we need, will we even need that structure anymore? Or is the future of data input going to be a seamless, intelligent conversation where the form as we know it just disappears? It's a question that's going to define the next chapter of how we live our digital lives.